It's the stuff of nightmares. In June, as the world watched in horror, London's Grenfell Tower was devoured by flames. At the height of the blaze, parts of the building rained down near firefighters and bystanders. To many in the building industry, even here in Australia, it was clear straight away what was falling. It was aluminium cladding that had been made with a highly flammable polyethylene or PE core. Did you know what was on the building when you saw those pictures?
Absolutely.
What did you think?
Absolutely. It's PE.
Why did you think that?
Because of the way that the flames spread, the way that the panels were falling off the wall. Just because with PE goes up the building and down the building. The droplets spread the flame, and I knew exactly what it was, absolutely. And anybody in the industry that would know exactly what it was.
The fire began from an electrical fault in a fridge in a fourth-floor apartment. The flames leapt out a window, caught the cladding outside, then raced round the building and up 20 floors to the 24th within 15 minutes. So how combustible is this stuff?
A kilogram of polyethylene will release the same amount of energy as a kilogram of petrol. And it gets worse than that because polyethylene is denser than petrol too. So that's about, a kilogram of polyethylene is like about 1.5 litres of petrol.
And so how many kilograms of polyethylene might there be on the side of a building?
If you look at a 1 metre by 1 metre square section, that will have about 3 kilograms, the equivalent to about 5 litres of petrol.
Grenfell Tower was a catastrophe. Polyethylene cladding, flammable insulation, poor maintenance, a lack of sprinklers, and bad advice not to evacuate. The first crews arrived within 5 minutes. They were expecting a fire in one apartment. They couldn't believe what they saw.
This was outside the building. It was burning on 5 or 10 floors. This was completely outside of anything that we were prepared for or expecting. It was actually a moment of absolute silence in the truck.
Tim Erickson was one of the first responders.
We have a fire in a multi-storey apartment, multi-storey building. Fire is on the 3rd floor, extending up to the 10th floor, going along the balconies. We have a huge amount of smoke and fire on the building. We have multiple people inside the building.
Within minutes, the flames had reached the 21st floor, the top of the building. Around 450 people were evacuated.
You know, our whole history of, over 100 years, 125 years, and the way buildings are constructed, we've never seen anything like it before. So you have multiple seats of fire over multiple levels all at the same time.
Sure, we had lots of combustible items.
The fire brigade made a graphic reconstruction.
So we had, in this case, a table and chairs and lots of things around it. As we know from the fire investigation, there was a plastic yogurt container that was being used for cigarette butts. That started a fire onto the timber furniture. Fire got in behind the air conditioning unit, and then the panel ignited. And with the ignition of the panel, we had flames shooting up the side. So the fire actually spread from one level to another and continued on up the building.
This shows how the fire spread up the building from balcony to balcony.
What's really striking about it was actually the fire progression. It progressed, up to level 21 in less than 8 minutes. Nobody in this, in the country has really seen anything like that before. And the vertical fire spread for that particular fire was unprecedented. In my career, I've never seen anything like it.
Cladding, made from 2 sheets of aluminium sandwiched around a core, ran right up the building.
Our first reaction was, how the hell has this happened? How have we got a modern building that, and we know what the construction code says, that you shouldn't have a combustible product on the outside of a building of this type. So how has this been allowed to happen?
The fire brigades sent a sample of the cladding to the CSIRO for testing.
One sample flames more than 5 seconds, that's combustible. So that ignited very early and flamed substantially, and we have to take the sample out, as you saw. If we leave it in too long, all the material melts to the bottom, or we damage the equipment.
The fire-resistant cladding only did a little better.
So the next one, it had some filler in it, some fire retardant, so mineral filler.
About 70%, you said?
Approximately, yes. But that's still got 30% polyethylene, so it performs very similarly in this test. It still flames, still gets a temperature rise, but it does it a bit slower.
Fires like this at an apartment block in northern France show how polyethylene cladding can inflame and fuel the fire. This one left one resident dead. A couple of years later, combustible cladding caught fire at one of the tallest residential buildings in the world, the 86-storey and unfortunately named Torch Tower in Dubai. But polyethylene isn't the only dangerous product we're putting on our buildings. Now polystyrene is springing up too.
The product we're talking about is the styrene foam that's used in packaging and so on. If it burns, it'll melt. It'll melt like a marshmallow. There's a lot of it. There's an enormous amount of it now because it's a cheap means of construction. And when it's rendered with an acrylic render over it, it looks like concrete for all intentional purposes. Most people would think and believe that they've got a concrete building.